Hi, this is great. So, how are we doing? Anyone wants to share how they're doing? This would be good. Excuse me. Comments is fine too, but if you want to share on vocals or video, then this is welcomed. But quiet is fine too. Leave it to me to fill the air with conversation, anyways. Oh, Neo in the background barking. Great. Yeah, how's your afternoon going? How's the meditations going? If anything, there was some questions coming about the meditations, and we're going to dive into that. Once again, we're going to start right with a short meditation just to, I don't know, explore how we feel in this moment. Um, the topic that we went into about the importance of breath and the efficiency of breath, I feel um, is really everything. I mean, especially in this time where we're thinking about, uh, you know, our natural self and what our natural self feels like, and what does a natural, put together body and mind and spirit feel like on a day-to-day regular experience, especially when we're faced with the contrast of disease and illness and virus and all of that. The breath is going to be the quickest way in which we can come into clarity within ourselves, outside of consciousness, of course. Um, Consciousness meaning our conscious awareness of what our present experience is. That'd be a good way of putting it. You know, to feel our emotions, to feel our state of inner experience is a process of coming into alignment with consciousness, to be conscious of what is arising in our present moment to moment movement. What is the mind saying? What are the feelings in the body saying? What are the thoughts saying? All of it. And it's through consciousness in which um, really everything happens. Because the clarity of what we're coming to within all of this is that everything within our moving experience of human life is illusionary. We kind of touched on that. Like if you took a microscope and zoomed into your finger, you would eventually just be looking at empty space. So what we think is this finger, as we touch it, it feels so real. When you really zoom into it, it's actually not that real. And from this perception, we can relate that to everything. And on a very simple and practical light, anything that's causing any sort of suffering, say, I don't know, you just made a mistake, and that mistake has caused you now self-judgment. And that self-judgment is really just fueled through the idea that this mistake was real. And in other words, this mistake is still present, right? Like we just made a mistake in the moment before. And now we're in this moment, of course, because every moment is just constantly coming anew. And in this new moment, we're in a space where that isn't really actually present. It's no longer present. But yet the mind is creating as if it is so, you know, replaying and judging, doubting, creating suffering around really something that is not only no longer present in the moment experience, but in reality, it never was. Meaning it never was as real as you believed it to be. Um, it never was as big of a deal as you believed it to be. It never was as important as you believed it to be. Because in reality, once again, if everything we call ourselves being this body, and this body may be so important and has a place in the world, has status, you know, holds identities and roles, and is important to some people, and you know, a friend to other people, family member to other people. You know, there's endless identities that come to mind and come and arise when we think of just this body. But yet, when we zoom in, we see 99.9% empty space. So in reality, everything we believe to be so real and so important is actually even not even really there. You know, it's not even it's not at all close to what we believe it to be. So, and then of course, this is just the mirror to how we exist within this endless universe. We are just a speck of dust within this endless infinite universe. So what's really being pointed to is that whatever we believe to be extremely important is likely not. And in the same light, there's other things in which we may resist their importance. Something that actually is calling our attention, but we're like, no, that's not important. In other words, this is what we kind of were getting into before. It's a rushing towards or a pushing against, right? A rushing towards a sense of self-importance and a pushing away of what is not going to support that level of importance. And in reality, it's going to be the challenges and the fears in which we're not wanting to face in a certain sense. Whatever fear, whatever thing that seems separate, whatever thing is going to cause some suffering, then or pain rather, because suffering is inevitable. But we're pushing this away. And both of these things are holding space and holding energy within consciousness. Right? This is important to remember, right? Because it works on both ends. Because of course, if we just hold only to the idea that life isn't important, then we become apathetic. We become unhealthily detached from the world, ungrounded. And on the other end, if we believe life is too important, then there's too much of an engagement, and thus there's inevitability of suffering on both ends. So we balance every perspective by holding its opposite simultaneously. And this is an exercise actually that was very helpful on my path, and it's going to be even more helpful for those with a human design open ajna center. If you have an open ajna center, there's a lot of attachments to certainty. Even those with having a defined ajna center, if there's a lot of not self, if you're living a lot in your not self, then you're still going to have the difficulty. But regardless, it's a exercise of exploring opposites. Meaning, if you are finding a challenge or difficulty with something in particular, something coming to mind, there's something that is, holding space in your consciousness. This is a very nice way of putting it. Anything that's holding space in your consciousness it's likely for a reason. You may not know why, but there's a reason why it's there. And so to explore opposites is basically to dissolve it in many ways, because everything is neutralized by opposites. Meaning, if we're holding to a certain idea that this is the way something is, right? This is the way something is. Everything that goes against that is going to cause suffering because we've attached ourselves to the rigidity of that perspective. And so if we navigate our life in this way, and we're looking to see and open to the opposites, then we'll see that whatever is causing suffering is an opposing perspective to what is being held within the mind. And this is to be explored. We can meditate upon this. We can move into that energy. We can move into that perspective and at least entertain it. You don't have to believe it, but we can at least entertain it and see whatever this opposite is that's causing suffering right now. It's opposing a perspective I have, and maybe there is truth to it. Maybe there is some validity to it in some form. And source, God, infinite self, show me the way, show me what is true about this perspective. Show me why this is being revealed to me in this moment. And this can be an active meditation right now, as it is for some of you. Show me and allow me to receive the messaging which is being revealed. The perspective that's being revealed. This is going to support in very rapidly revealing. It will very rapidly reveal the nature of where certain rigid beliefs or perspectives are being held that really do not have any use. Right? Like initially on the path, we may get good at setting and creating new beliefs. This is a common initial level teacher. We need to create new, more positive beliefs about ourselves, about the world. This is an empowering process. We go through this empowering energy, and this is helpful, especially when we've gone through periods where we have felt disempowered, or we've been, say, abused in different ways, and we all have to certain degrees. Or we're holding certain traumas. It's very beneficial to move through a reorientation of belief and to look at how can we create new beliefs to support our experience. Yet the trick with this is to recognize that we cannot find safety or safe haven in any belief. There's no belief that we can find true, endless, eternal um, safety with, or feeling of true contentment with. It will never truly satisfy oneself because, again, it is something that's being observed, right? If we can observe a belief, like a belief is just simply a construct that we've created through language within the mind that's backed through a certain emotional energy. This is like an affirmation, right? If we speak an affirmation with true conviction, we are infusing a certain language, uh, an array of words that holds a certain meaning, and we are engaging that with our energy. This is our this is how we create within creation. We move vibration, and we move vibration, light, and sound, all together. And so this is how we move within the creation. Yet at the same time, we are to simultaneously hold to the perspective that creation is endlessly changing. It's endlessly evolving. So what we infuse within one belief in one moment may no longer be applicable in the next moment. And at any point in which we're holding too strongly to any certain specific belief in particular, the universe has a beautiful way of balancing that out. Right? This is the essence of an energy of polarity and opposites that we exist within. So, this is kind of goes into what I'll just say. Jess was just messaging me before. Hey, Jess, joining us in second session. She had messaged me about a question regarding, kind of what we went into earlier. So to refresh in the topic of coronavirus, and this can be applied to anything. So this is a really beautiful practice. Any certain topic that we hold in the mind can be perceived on varying levels, varying dimensions. So in this case, we keep it simple, third, fourth, and fifth dimension. In reality, we're looking to assimilate all of these so we can hold a well-rounded and holistic view most of the time, if not all the time, where on the third dimensional level, we see the virus of corona, we see the potential dangers, we see the precautions we are to take physically and to boost our immune system, to make ourselves feel well, to distance, all of the above. Then in a fourth dimensional sense, we see generally where the conspiracy type, I don't even call it conspiracy, I call it truthspiracy, because for me, it's not really conspiracy. There are conspiracies, and if we just are, it's more so just coming to truth. It's not about whether it's this or that. It's just, is it true or not? you know? And so on a fourth dimensional sense, we come to a perspective that there are certain truths that we would say that the majority within consciousness do not have the perception of. They're not able to conceive of the reality that we exist in within this planet, a planet that has controlling measures and it is ruled in certain ways and has been. And it also really gets into the true history of our planet, because fourth dimension has to do with time and the transition of time. So from this perspective, there are many different layers of this conversation of different controlling things and the truthspiracies of various perspectives of why coronavirus is here and what's here about it and who's responsible for it and what are the measures they're taking now and how they're instilling certain laws and taking freedom away from the people and many different types of perspectives. So this is where we're going to have that. Now, on the fifth dimension, we're going to look at the perspective of how this is relating on an energetic level of consciousness. That any issue in our own personal life, like a physical disease, is a manifestation of an energetic issue, an energetic imbalance. And it is also just a product of karma. It's a product of our natural karmic process. So kind of like what we went into as well, guilt being one of the worst things, in the 90s from 0 to 100, guilt being one of the worst emotions we can experience versus like cigarettes and alcohol being like, 14, 15 on the scale. So you have 90 of really, interesting emotions, guilt, shame, etc. And then you have, alcohol and tobacco and things at like a 14, 15. So third dimension versus our feeling dimension is vastly different in its effect. So we have to take this into account of recognizing that just because we're some spiritual master doesn't mean we can't get sick. It doesn't mean we can't die of something. It doesn't mean anything like that. Really, those things matter very little in comparison to the degree in which one knows their light, because that gets into a far more complex discussion. Do we choose to move on graciously? Do we choose to die of a disease? It becomes a very individual conversation that we won't get into too much. But what I'm getting at is that the more we get caught up within the lower dimensional perspectives of things is the more we have the possibility and potential to get caught up in extreme perspectives and in varying degrees of perspectives that are bound to have opposing perspectives, right? And those opposing perspectives are naturally going to create energies within ourselves that are of conflict. They're of looking to uphold, a certain opinion, looking to debate something, looking to prove your rightfulness and the other person's potential wrongfulness, this type of kind of winner loser type of game. And this will exist within every space, but as we come deeper within our own light and within our own inner balancing, and again our own coming to these opposites, neutralizing of these opposites within, then we're not looking necessarily to find perspectives, beliefs, opinions, or ideas, studies, art, all these things. I just posted about this. We're not necessarily looking to find these things in the sense of them supporting our well-being, like supporting us and feeling like some sort of certainty around this. If anything, the faster path and the more productive path is to explore the depth of the pain that the uncertainty is causing. Right? Is it potentially a great kind of trajectory to take of exploring the depths of why the uncertainty of not knowing at all what this is all about, or where this is headed, or what's going to occur in regards to the outer ideas and the outer perspectives of all these different people and all these different things, and instead truly come inwards to explore, firstly, what are the fears arising that are forcing the need and the necessity to have opinions and ideas that are so strong, and so they have to be like this and they're like that on the initial layer. And then, of course, moving even deeper to the place where, well, what is the actual depth of one's own intuition and higher self and inner guidance and messages saying about all of this? What is guiding in this moment about just this body, just this experience, in regards to your immediate environment, immediate situation, immediate community, that can be of most benefit, right? Of most benefit to not only this body, but everyone around, everyone affected by the words, the knowledge, the wisdom, everything that you're carrying. Right? This is truly what's going to be of most support, because I mean, I know this quite well myself, because I've been one to certainly, I mean, the journey of much of my awakening initially started within the perspectives of Illuminati and the Matrix and conspiracies and all of these different things, showing and revealing so much of what I had intuitively knew my whole life, but this put words to what I was feeling, and sometimes that's useful. But really, the reason why I'm not pointing that initially is because if we do not have the true connection with ourselves first, then it's very easy to get lost, within this perspective or that perspective, or this thing that seems so cool, and this thing that seems so good, and this thing that seems so true, and like, oh no, now it's this. And it truly is an endless rabbit hole. And it's because it's an endless rabbit hole of ideas, perspectives, opinions, beliefs, things that truly are infinite in every direction. You will find endless ideas and perspectives, because it's just infinite amount of people speaking infinite amount of things. And so naturally, as we come to a deeper level of balance and clarity within ourselves, then we navigate this with much grace. So there may be times where you feel a natural movement into just simply observing what others are saying, because what I'm not saying is to avoid all this information altogether. It's going to come up anyways. You're vibrationally going to attract it through your social media feed, or through a book, or through some article you stumble upon or something. And all of it is to be embraced. All of it is to be observed in that same neutrality, where if there is a clarity within and a natural balancing within of your knowing and unknowing, you don't know it all. So we're not trying to prove that we do. That's the beauty of it. That's the flexibility, and that is the joy of it all, because then through that energy and that intention, you can take the perspectives of both sides. You could take the perspectives that seem on the surface layer opposing, but yet still have truth within them. And this is also a product of the natural journey that we may have in our valuing of people and I spoke to this before, you know, the valuing of the idolized celebrity versus the homeless man or something like this, you know, a typical example. It's when we've come to an inward resolution to the degree in which we value each of these individuals, seeing that they truly are equally as valuable, right? They are manifested aspects of God and consciousness, and everything is equal in the sense. And this is an ongoing journey because we're having to truly reprogram and release perspectives. I know in my own journey, the initial layers of really reprogramming this came by way of never walking by a homeless man without giving them some money or something, right? I remember seeing a friend do this actually once, just after a coffee meeting, and I had passed by this homeless man every day, and this is probably the first time he was in that neighborhood, and he had to interrupt our conversation to give money to him, and I'll never forget that. And then later on, you know, learning from various other teachers about the importance of supporting those who are in need in that way on various levels, you know, single mothers, the sick, the hungry, the poor. You know, there's various dimensions to that, but that was an initial journey that started to evolve. Then it evolved into making sure maybe I stop for a conversation, or at least smile and acknowledge, you know, or times that naturally aligned where there really was a need, you know, seeing what else I could do, bring them inside, you know, when there's the winter time or whatever has to occur, right? And so, you know, as this continued to balance and does within myself, this became a core of the messaging, because as we go along the path of awakening, especially those, you know, especially this past week, I've been seeing countless amounts of healers and all this everywhere around the world. They're popping up from everywhere because it's really the time. And with that, at the same time, there is the potential for an egoic cloak of spirituality that, you know, is hidden behind the crystal packets and the drums and the shamanic singing and blah blah blah. And we have to really get to the basis of what we're really coming into. What is it that we're really realizing within? And that is the nature that the journey of our awakening is bringing us to a higher level of responsibility, but yet we always will still always have the same level of value. You know, no matter where you're at on the trajectory of your awakening and consciousness on this planet or another, the value of all beings within the universe are equal, but the level of responsibility is what's different. And so, you know, within relationship, this very much becomes our journey of possibility, is seeing that if we can perceive all beings in this way, um, this is why it was the fundamental rule, as always, the golden rule. Because then, as we practice that in our day-to-day experience, naturally, every time we come inwards and every time we are moving within aspects of things within ourselves, remember the teaching we went into the beginning of today, everything is yourself. You are only with yourself. Everything that is perceived is only what you yourself are. So as we truly practice that and see that the challenging situations, the things that bring up energies within us, things that bring confusion, doubt, you know, guilt, all of it, it is all as equal as everything else. And so I'm speaking of this because when we practice in this way to others, you know, the homeless man, the celebrity, all of that, and we're continuing to source within ourselves where there is that nature of idolization, because it's in that idolization that we are fueling the exact system that's breaking down right now. Right? The system that is breaking down right now is the system of the hierarchical the pyramid based way of being that you know, naturally perpetuates the savior program of some being so loftier, you know, and higher than you, and you know, all of this. And then thus, if that is the perception, there are likely those that are below. But this is just not the case. We're always going to be teachers to another and students to someone else. You know, this is the natural trajectory. We always are to learn from one another and to teach one another. And different people at different times will come in and out of our experience to be that. And funny enough, as we truly come to a humility and balance within, we tend to find ourselves learning and teaching, learning from everyone, and potentially teaching and sharing it with everyone. You know, it's a really beautiful thing. um, and I feel like what I was really getting to with all of that, um, kind of tangent, is that when we look to our immediate environment, say we're looking just at the topic of wanting to do research on something, like maybe coronavirus or something like this, trying to do research. Very, very much so, the answers to the questions you may have may come just right in the immediate environment. I tend to, in myself at least, a practice that I generally come to, and sometimes you can get caught up in the mind, so you got to bring yourself back. But if there's ever a question or something that arises naturally from within me, I'm generally looking to my immediate moment to see where the answer is also, because if the question is arising, the answer must also be there. It's just one side of the coin. So many times we think if there's a question, there's this long process that we have to go through to answer. It's going to take time, But I would suggest and just um, ask for each to entertain the possibility that if a question is arising, maybe the answer is already potentially there. Maybe the next thing you look at is the answer. Maybe someone is just going to say something and it's the answer. Maybe you're just going to tune in and maybe the answer is already just right there with you. It's very likely that this is the case. It is. I mean, to be honest, it is the case. It's just whether or not that can be revealed. Whether or not there's a willingness to see. So it's not so much a focus on trying to look around and where's the next answer. It's more about really truly tuning in to the level of willingness that you have to receive what is truly available now. What is already here now. And coming back to what we started with today, which is that breath session, of really slowing down the breath to a point where we can see that if we can be as efficient as possible with the most fundamental thing of our human experience, which is the breath, then naturally we're setting ourselves up to be endlessly, infinitely efficient with the entirety of our experience. So thus, if you have a question, instead of needing to like run around the world to get the answer, the answer can very quickly arise from within you. And there's a beauty to having confirmation. I'm not saying there's not a usefulness to having confirmation. I'm acting as this right now for you, and in a way you're acting that as for me. We require confirmation, as this is just the nature of our human experience. It's like touch. We're all like lacking a bunch of touch right now, which I actually think is a good thing, especially in the spiritual community, where you can come back to yourself a little bit. Think you don't need so much cuddles and hugs and all that, but you can we can come to this when the time's right. But there's a necessity to have touch. It's a beautiful thing. At the same time, when we come to such a level of degree of inward balance within ourselves, we would need much less of that, right? Because we've healed the aspects of ourselves that was longing for it or didn't get it at the time that was really necessary, generally in our early years of childhood, right? And then other things arise from that. But so we're just simply coming back here. We're coming back to this moment, taking a breath. We're recognizing our power, recognizing the degree of our intelligence that we may not always consciously know or understand. But coming back to the thing of nothing matters, then you can explore this with more freedom, because if your intuition is wrong, let's say, or if you ask yourself a question and you instantly get some answer and you go with that and maybe you're wrong, well, there's some room to breathe, you know? And that's what I feel like we're in right now. If everything is really coming down, meaning a lot of the hopes and dreams that we had in the society to be something, to be someone, to be something, whatever, all of that is being humbled so deeply right now. So much of what may have thought to be so important may no longer be as important. And in that, there's more of a degree of desire to treat life as not being as important as we have thought it to be potentially, and in maybe a more practical way of viewing this is as serious, just so serious in the light of this being this way and having this opinion and this belief and this perspective and it having to be this way, and now maybe it's not. And for those of you, like all of you in this call, I mean, it's not just this situation that we're facing that is bringing this up. It's just that this will just bring everything up in a much faster rate, or perceived faster rate. So nice. This is our opening message for today. So yeah, how are we feeling? Again, if you want to say something, you're welcome to. Just say in the comments if you can't unmute yourself. If you can't, I will unmute you. You should be able to. Same with those on the other live. You can say hello and comment. We will go into a meditation briefly, but there was other questions I was getting during the session as a message, so I will just try and find that. Oh, there's a message. Feeling great. Thank you. Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, so actually, I do think this will relate to something, but we'll get into that after. I feel we'll go into a brief meditation right now. I'm not going to do the sound healing through Zoom. I likely will do that through Facebook after because the sound quality is so terrible through Zoom. So yeah, we just won't do that. But for right now, let's see if we can come inwards. I'm going to pull up the code that we were using before, just because it's always nice to have. You don't have to have it. You don't have to use it if you don't want to, but I would recommend doing so. And so one thing that I'm not going to guide this too much. I'm going to be very simple. It's just a simple practice of in through the nose, filling up the entirety of the body and slowly out through the nose. If you want to do some rapid breaths in the beginning, so a quick inhale, and you could do it out through the nose quickly or out through the mouth, whatever works. But we're going to then come back into just very slowly in through the nose and out through the nose. In through the nose, out through the nose. And as I was mentioning, we're continuing to elongate, continuing to deepen, and continuing to slow down the breath to the point where we can go almost as long, not almost, as long as you possibly can inward and as long as you can outward without straining yourself. Right? So it's more important that you're not straining than it is that it's some like, one breath per minute type thing. But if that's possible for you, then we can do that. So I'm going to just briefly share my screen, and you can keep the eyes closed or just open to breathe in the symbol. This is the feel good code. It'll be great to share our experience with this code later. It takes some time sometimes to really sink in. But all we're doing is we're looking at it with our third eye. So our perception is back in the center of our brain. And we're breathing in the symbol into the center of the pineal. And then as we exhale, expanding it throughout the entire body. And as you're doing this, just simply feeling the frequency and the vibration of it being really open. We can be open in the heart as well. And when you feel complete with looking at it, you can always come back to it, but we can close your eyes too. It's up to you. Though the only focus is continuing to slow down the breath. So if you can slow down the breath about 50%, we can do that and continuing to elongate as well. So not only are we slowing it down, we're also elongating it. Moving the attention towards the back of the body so we feel ourselves really relaxing through, almost like we're dissolving through the body. Feeling every ounce of energy that we're moving in through the body. If any emotions are arising, we're moving there, we're becoming in tune with that. not running from it, breathing into that region. There's even room to let go of the breath when you feel so. But I would continue with the breath for just a little while just to keep building that charge through every cell. Seeing if we can slow down the breath even more. And whenever you feel ready, we're going to release from the breath, release from any control of the breath, and just come into watching. Just come into watching, just observing what's present, observing what's here. Feel releasing through the crown, maybe some sensations that arise or in the heart. And as that feels naturally complete for you, then we can bring ourselves back out. So if you'd like to share anything about that meditation or just how you're experiencing yourself, feel free to. There's no rush on that. Take our time to come out. I know someone on the live was mentioning they were seeing flowers bloom in their third eye and hearing the words rebirth with a deep sense of peace and gratitude. Rebirth is certainly the movement of these times. I mean, we're coming into the spring, which naturally is a rebirthing time, anyways. So, as I've been calling this the spring on steroids, this is certainly the case. Maybe we should come up with a better term than steroids. Maybe like, I don't know, the activated spring. Throw a bunch of spiritual terms on it. It'll be good. Spiritually activated springs. We're all 5D spring. Oh God. The spiritual community gets carried away sometimes, that's for sure. Um, but this, coming to a more serious note, the rebirth certainly is the case. I'm having a hard time meditating. Maybe you need to get up and move. I've been seeing you get up and move. That's a good thing. Reeve. You know, I can't hear you. If you want to say something, I could bring you on. How you doing, Arif? There you go.
I'm having a hard, energetic day.
Mm,
A
I've
lot
noticed.
like motivation and lethargy,
Mm. What does lethargy feel like?
and like it's like I just can't get into an activity. It's kind of like a blah.
Mm.
Yeah, but I've been feeling that around me. I don't know. Not in this group.
True.
This has been nice. This has been nice. This has been refreshing, actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was gonna ask you to sing if you wanted to
Hmm.
before, but I can let you sit on that.
Okay.
I do want to just touch on this for a moment. Um, the nature of the waves. I think what's important for us to all recognize is the waves that we're all experiencing collectively as a whole. And so, like,
Hmm.
there's not always an explanation as to why it is. And in my own experience, at least, the challenges that have been faced when that type of energy is present, the inability to do certain things, the feeling of yeah, like just lethargy is a good way of putting it, or apathy. Many times this is a processing period where there's a lot of movements that have happened energetically and in deeper spaces, and then physically it ends up manifesting in a almost like a delayed fashion, right? So if there's
Hmm.
if there's been periods of deepened clarity, periods of energetic heightenedness and awareness,
Hmm.
we've talked about the idea of, obviously bipolar energies and manic energies a lot. And that's, I've
Hmm.
experienced what one may have deemed that, but I don't view it like that at all anymore, simply because I simply see it as a process of awakening that's moving from an energetic, deeper, if vibrational, emotional place, and then exploring itself into the physical, which comes by way of purification symptoms, you know, and
Hmm.
that has a
Hmm.
lot to do with our biology and our chemistry, and the rebalancing of that biology and chemistry is not always pretty, for one, but we make it less pretty generally by the resistance of that processing period, the resistance of
Hmm.
the time that's necessary, to move inwards, or just to simply be with the entirety of those feelings, as daunting as that um may be. But nonetheless, you're on the call, so there's a certain willingness and desire, at least, for balancing that's present. And I think that's all to be honest, that's all that ever matters in my experience, is as long as there's a continual um focus upon it's not necessarily a focus upon what is next, but it is, in a sense, it's a focus upon what's naturally moving forward. See,
Hmm.
there's a different tonality with that. If we're focused on what's coming next and what's next as a way to escape, then of course we're just looking for relief. However, if we're focused upon the energy that's naturally moving forward, which is the energy of source, the energy of God that is naturally moving all things, if we just continue to
Hmm.
focus upon this naturalness and then surrender to that, this creates a world of difference,
Yeah.
where it's a yeah, it's a real magical space to be.
Hmm.
So yeah, thank you for sharing. But yeah, if you do want to sing later, let me know.
Okay.
Breath meditation is so powerful and subtle and simple. Yeah, it really is. And uh, as I mentioned earlier, in the yogic system, a great goal and attainment would be to breathe one time a minute. For even just once, just do 1 minute of one breath is a beautiful practice, because naturally, the less breath, the less life that we're giving. Um, So the practice of continuing to slow down the breath is just simply the practice of slowing down the mind. Now, the breath is used as a beautiful tool to get there, but there are different angles to that. And, Arif speaking about not being into meditation, say today, or maybe you're not into meditation for a week, or maybe not for a month. I don't know. But meditation, seated practice of meditation is not necessarily what meditation is pointing to. This is kind of like an important distinction, because the practice of seated meditation is a pointer to meditative awareness, true coming into a true state of realization of one's state of being that travels with you everywhere. It moves everywhere. It is everywhere all the time. It is always present. And the changing movements of mind and the coming and going of emotions and the circumstances that change in and out of your life, this is what happens and moves on top of this sense of being, but the sense of being remains. So the seated practice of meditation or using the breath is to calm the body and mind down so that we can notice this being, this sense of being, right? If we can't notice the sense of being, then there's just naturally too much distraction, too much identification that's occurring. There's too much identification with the mind. Something is seeming so real. Some fear, has got a hold of your attention, and it's pulling consciousness and energy in so many different ways. So to move to that place of connecting with that sense of being is simply to ongoingly connect and recognize the awareness that's always watching. This doesn't necessarily mean your life is going to become all like rose and everything's going to feel great and everything's going to be wonderful all the time. What it means is that you're coming in contact with truth, right? You're coming in contact with what is true, what is real, what is actually real. So whatever is illusionary or false about the experience that there's been a heavy identification with, a lot of trauma around, a lot of strong held beliefs and dogmas and ideas and all of the different things that arise within the egoic mind. These are the things that are going to be felt as if they're threatened. They're going to feel threatened, and they will begin to break apart. And this happens anytime we're trying to change a habit, change a perspective. There's an aspect of the body mind that feels that it's not even that it feels, the feeling of fear or the feeling of being threatened arises. This is a different way of looking at it. It's an ongoing important way of looking at this. It is not that you feel threatened or you feel this. It's that there is just naturally the feeling of this arising. And of course, we're going to say, well, I feel this and I feel that. And that helps acknowledge it. Though when we say, I feel this feeling, or I feel this fear, or I feel this doubt, or this, are we not still observing something? Right? We're still observing because there's something that can pick up that I, and there's something that can put down that I. I am feeling this way. I am not feeling this way. There's something that can pick up that and put that down. This is what we're pointing to when it comes to this place of being. So, in a certain sense, it's kind of like, I don't know, a pimple's a good example. A pimple just arises and naturally comes out, like there's nothing you really do with it. I mean, you could pick at it, you could do all kinds of things with it, but it does its own thing and it naturally comes out. It's the body's way of naturally purging itself. It wants to purge, it releases in this way, right? This happens with all types of disease. It's a purging process. So in the light of awakening to truth, all falsehood will be revealed. All falsehood is brought to the surface. So in this sense, there's an ongoing beauty in our embracing of the entirety and the full spectrum of our experience without necessarily needing to do anything with anything in particular. Simply observing, embracing, and experiencing it all as intimately as we can. And whatever we feel like we can't is just another aspect of that process. It's like that's just another arising. So if we're on the path of changing a habit, and then the habit changes for a little while, and then we move back, the moving back is just as equal as the moving forward, because this is the process that's unfolding. It's just the natural arising that continues to arise. And this is the journey that we are each on, that not even no one can speak to, really. We can't speak to each other's paths because they're also infinitely different. Yet we can speak to the principles and the underlying perceptions that will bring us the grace to truly embrace the loving and compassion that we can have for ourselves when we're going through this purification, right? So we experience the newfound perception, we experience the energy transmission, the activation, whatever it is. That activates energies within our being, within our brain, within the entirety of our self. And then that trickles down into the mental and physical levels of our being, which then generally will become more difficult. That will feel challenging, right? That can feel physically painful. And this is what we're experiencing collectively. We're seeing it all around. And then for all of you who've been on this path for some time, you have already experienced this in your life. The entirety of your life has been this. You know, if we don't look at as awakening as just the moment that you learned about some spiritual yoga or like watched an Illuminati video or something, if we look at it, the entirety of our life has been this awakening, right? The entire our life has been this awakening. It's just that it's been maybe it was happening at such a slow pace, and now it's happening exponentially, and now we're seeing it everywhere. You know, awakening is happening everywhere, even for those who don't even know what awakening is. It's happening. It's because this is the way, the natural trajectory of experience of life anyways. So to have a bunch of spiritual concepts and ideas about it doesn't really matter too much. Although we do live within language and within concepts, so it is helpful at the same time. Right? But I can guarantee there are many beings in your sphere that may not know anything about spiritual lingo, and they could be potentially more awakened than you are. Right, but then we're getting into a lot of nuances, so I don't want to get into that. It's just it's a funny way of looking at it, right? This is another approach, another perception, you know, entertaining idea that we can hold to continue to humble ourselves, right? Like giving money, spending time with the homeless man, that humbles you, right? It's not that you don't have enough time to take a minute to pull out a few dollars, you know. You have enough time, and if you don't think you do, you need to humble yourself, you know. And so in the sense of coming back to the humility of all types of perceptions, we certainly can view those who just simply live a heart-centered way of being that may not have all the lingo to back it up, but yet are embodying and presenting a vibrational way of living that we truly all desire. And certainly this is where we're going to come to a recognition and a embracing of the many who are going to continue awakening this time in a very rapid pace. You know, family members included, friends, old acquaintances. It'll be across the board, and it is already. So for all of you in this call, I mean, all of you, you wouldn't vibrationally be able to be there and unless you know, there was a certain level of leadership and awareness that you each have. So it's a recognition of the responsibility that you do have in that sense. And this is not to put pressure or stress. It's just to ignite a recognition of the importance, you know, of the humility and the compassion that we can have as we're exploring right now, you know, as we're speaking to. Nice. So what else is present? We can just rest in this for a moment too. Simply this vibrational awareness is enough at times, just to simply share presence. And we do this every time we come into meditation in our own time. We connect on an energetic and a vibrational field. You know, that vibrational field is connected across the universe. It's connected across space and time, meaning all the aspects of your incarnated self. There are many aspects to you living right now. What we consider past lives, future lives, present incarnations, these are all simultaneously occurring at the same time. Right? So to heal ourselves in this moment and to connect with ourselves in the varying dimensions of ourselves is to connect with these varying levels and layers to this life experience that may have potentially perceivably happened in the past or will happen in the future, right? Or as we connect to soul family like we are today, and maybe others in your life that you connect to in that way, that you believe to be connected in that way, it will continue. These relationships will continue to be fostered, continue to develop, and continue to expand in the circle, because the web of awakened beings is continuing to open. And the effortless nature of developing these relationships is not something that, we were speaking about partnership and relationship in the first session, and the nature of this perspective being redefined in this time, right? Where we may look at the romancing and the getting to know somebody and the developing friendships and stuff. I mean, many of those principles are going to continue, of course. And yet, when we connect to people on a vibrational level, this is where much of those rules can be kind of transcended in a certain sense. They change, right? They shift in a way that brings us to knowing, right? Because again, traditional love-based relationships are very much about belief and developing a sense of trust that has to do with someone, in a sense, proving this trust, gaining this trust, right? And the belief of love, like believing that the love of this chemical creation, the experience, this emotional experience that we have with another. When we connect with the true essence of love within ourselves, when we connect with a trust of within God's source, a trust within source that everything truly will always be okay. This is a trust and more so a knowing that comes only by way of moving within to the place within that can connect that dot, if you will. And then in the time that is right, it will mirror within the relationship of another and will bring up the traumas. It will bring up the ways in which that's being doubted. It will bring up certain things in all different respects. Though it will point to a love that is transcended from just simply this chemical based, belief based love, this love that constantly needs to be reminded in the mind, confirmed in the mind, and then no wonder, there's endless difficulty in relationship, because that is the model that we've gotten to know. Right. So as we come to that the endlessness of that love within ourselves, then this naturally becomes much more clear as we navigate the nature of relationships. And really it is all just coming back to balance. And we clearly talked about the energy and idea of human design quite a lot in the first session. And to live your natural design, your strategy and authority is going to bring the clarity of the nuance of what feels in alignment and what doesn't. Right? So the deconditioning process, when we look at our chart, very much has to do initially with strategy and authority. We have to stay very, very clear on that and really come to an understanding of that through the information, the knowledge, the teachers, readings that we have. If you haven't done a reading with me, we can do that. Coming to that clarity and recognizing the importance of really focusing on strategy and authority for a certain period of time, allowing for that to become crystal clear, and you will feel the transformation that brings in the body. And as that is revealed, we move into centers, open and closed centers. Jess needs to go. You're welcome. Bingo. Blessings to you. Have a good night. So as we come to the centers, this is where we'll really reveal the depth of the conditioning, wherever that conditioning is. And this is something that I feel, will continue to really unfold for each of you over this next period of time as you begin or continue to dive into your design charts and see where are these open centers, and in these open centers, has there been conditioning developed over time, and how is that limiting or bringing one away from the true authority, right? And this is as simple as it gets with that, because if the true authority is emotional or sacral or splenic or whatever, the conditioned centers will just simply magnify the not self theme of those of that authority. You will, in a sense, there will be a certain way of acting out the authority, acting out the way of decision making that's from that conditioned center, believing it to be your own, believing it to be, that's the way that you're meant to kind of act, and it will seem so real. It'll seem so convincing. That's what's really important. It'll seem so convincing to you that that's the way, and um, anything that's coming from the mind, like we went into, and anything that seems very important. This is such a simple meditation. We're going into endless meditations, right? Because there really is endless meditations. Everything is a meditation because every perspective I share, or every perspective you hear from someone, go into a very brief meditation to allow that frequency to come in. Any new idea, any new teaching that you receive, it can be a meditation in itself, right? But this simple meditative process of scanning within your awareness, or just simply looking at what seems so important to you right now, right? What's holding a place in your consciousness? And just like a friend who's calling your attention, can you give it the time, right? Can you give it the time of day to say hello, come to explore? So we come into spaces like this to answer questions, to go into topics, because we're all doing that collectively. We're moving into perspectives, to topics that we're all perceiving in some way, some form, and it's coming to the surface where we can all give it attention. I'm just acting as a conduit. I'm bringing up these topics, or you're asking a question. We're bringing it to the surface. We're putting it in the middle, and we're all silently observing and witnessing it. And then seeing, what does this reveal within me? Right? What does this bring up within me? What arises when we perceive these topics? Right? Maybe more questions. Right? Maybe clarity, maybe a feeling, a knowing, a confirmation inward that, yes, this is what I was perceiving. This is already what I've been looking to do, act upon, believe in, trust in, etc. And now we receive that. That's the greatest gift we can be to each other. Actively listen and confirm. And we all do that in different ways. We don't have to speak. We do it all in different ways. So if there's anything that wants to be shared further, then we can do this and dive in. We're still here. How long have I been teaching, facilitating? It's been quite a while. I mean, my first meditation was in 2011. My first meditation class, or 2012, sorry. But the facilitation has been occurring since far before that. In different other areas of personal development and health, well-being, all of this. So it's been a cultivated process. And like all of us, we put in the time. This really is the time to devote ourselves to the gifts that we have, right? The gifts that we have, the creative endeavors that we are to explore in a way that's truly open and vulnerable and authentic to our experience, to ourself. We're all being forced online and have not much else to do but to be online, or to be in ourselves, and the only in regards to connecting with others online or on the phone. And in so many ways, the reach or the degree in which we're connecting with others is at a capacity like never before. And some may or may not have resistance to technology in different ways. And but this technology is really pointing and revealing a power that we do have with our gifts and abilities and our stories and our ability to share and open ourselves up in different ways. Right. So whatever it is that your gift is, it really is the time in a certain sense for that to be, um, brought to the forefront and brought to the surface, and gifted, gifted in a way that opens up the conversation, opens up the energy of what you may only have to yourself. Maybe even your family members or friends or people that do not even know that these gifts are present within you, because you may have been uncomfortable to share, not wanting to bring it up or whatever. But it's there, it's available. So as long as we continue to come in balance with ourselves, that we're doing it with the proper intent. We're sharing our gifts with the proper intent, with what feels most aligned within ourselves. This is a practice and an art. It's a dance. Though that dance is going to reveal within us how we also are required to share more in whatever capacity that looks like, and to share it freely as best you can. These sessions that we're doing, as much as we're doing them on live, in here in Zoom, we share them on live as well. And some donate, some do not, some a little bit, some a lot, some not at all. But in the space of us coming to an authentic place of sharing, we're coming to a place where the intention is to share and share alone from the heart, because it is in the sharing that you will be also filled. I'm not speaking to you to share your gifts because you need to benefit all these people, you need to serve all these people. I'm speaking because the feeling in which is experienced through the sharing is what is going to fill each of you up. And from that place, then there will be the service. The service will be there. Right. So in my case, the sharing comes generally through words. I feel the most comfortable, I feel most aligned, most natural in this way. And others can benefit. Right. But I've done endless videos in front of just myself. Where I write thousands of words every day just to myself, and I post a lot of it, but some of it I don't post, because there's a joy in it. And so as we find this joy, we can share this and move in this way, and explore the energies of our gifts in an exponential way, more so than ever before. Right? Because that's the time we're in. And in the principles of gift sharing and gift economy, some of you are very familiar with this in this group. I've moved myself personally in and out of pay what you feel quite often, because I truly see that there's no real difference. Those who can afford will pay, those who cannot will not, and it is all equal. It's all okay, because each person will come in the right time to give what they need to give as an energetic exchange to yourself, those giving, or just to another. But in this new paradigm of us coming and getting grounded with our material monetary system and all of this is coming into a deep humility right now. We are having more and more to move into authentic ways of how we're expressing and naturally how we are to receive. The gift economy is a result of each of us living our joy. It's as simple as that. Right? To be in a place where we can give freely is to know that we'll always be taken care of, because the most primary way we're taken care of is through the joy of our own being. Then it's the breath and the rest of the elements. Then it's our safety, our house, and the other basic needs that we require to live. Right. So that is where money and things is useful, certainly. But if we have grounded our perspective more so on what we actually view to be basic needs, what we truly feel that we need at the basis of our experience, then this grounds in generally the fears we have around money, because it's really not that much. It's really not. And of course, if we have greater experience, responsibilities with children and people we need to care for, then it's different. Though if we are acting as the conduits for what it means to live efficiently and frugally, we're not spending too much, we're very efficient with our resources, we're living a regenerative life, we're sustaining ourselves in a sovereign way. We're not relying on all these things that we feel like we need to pay for and need. We simplify things. We become that light for then those who are also caring for, to take on that energy as well. And this is going to be very important if we end up moving into a recession, right? Which I do believe we are. And that's nothing to fear, especially for those who are in the vibration of what we're speaking of. Because again, the gifts that you have to share are going to be the most valuable in this time. Outside of basic needs, the things that we have to share to make those feel more in alignment, more at love, more at home within themselves is going to be of most value at this time. All right, so keep that in your heart. So I'm going to, again, leave it open one more time if there is any more questions or comments. If anyone does want to share, just let me know. It is precious, yes. What are the gifts to be shared in this moment? Well, the silence has done its job. We are in silence, clearly, which is all good. Kaylee feels not so alone. I'm feeling very isolated lately. I can imagine how that feels for sure. The more effort we can make to be a part of these groups is important. Christelle will be doing this on Wednesday, her Essence of Well-Being, once again. So that Wednesday night will be a recommendation. I'll be doing more for the rest of this week as well. There's a number of things I'll be continuing. But it's important for us to stay connected as best as we can. Even just one-on-one conversations, connections, making sure you connect in the Awaken group on the Facebook. We're going to be getting that more active so we can have more conversations in there. I did want to start a WhatsApp group too, or a Discord, so we'll see what that will look like. But just simply this, my baby in my tummy, I'm kind of scared. I just saw the pop up. I will definitely, yeah. Yes, you're holding new life. So we, as a community, we all have to be there to support women like you, Kaylee. New baby on the way, which is a beautiful thing. And in this time, it's naturally quite frightening because the baby's coming into a world and a circumstance in which is once in a lifetime. At least up until now, I see more of this occurring, just not with as much fear, because I feel we'll be all much more prepared. But I do believe this is only the beginning of things. But every moment is just the beginning of things, so don't take these words too seriously. So I'm going to leave it here. I'm not sure if there's any more shares and things that want to come through. If you want to unmute yourself or converse in any way, I am going to go onto Facebook to do the sound healing because that's where better sound can come through. Zoom is is not so great. So I'm going to do it there. For now, we'll see if we can get a better system up for those who don't want to come on Facebook or cannot come on Facebook. We're going to continue with these Zooms over the next coming weeks, so just keep that in mind. We'll do these groups regularly. The next one with Christelle is on Wednesday. And then if you guys are interested, so one thing that's come up with Ali as he's getting his, how do I connect on Facebook? What is your account name? Corey Sheik. Ali is moving into his online flow of sharing, similar to what I've done, and with mindful movement. and personal training, fitness, and overall well-being. And there's countless of you that are in the space of sharing gifts, sharing a new way to develop a financial foundation for yourself, how you're navigating sharing on social media, sharing what it is that you have to offer. All of you are going to be put in this situation in some way or another. My feel is over this next little while, at least a consideration of opening up other streams of resource, other streams of income for yourself. If there's only a reliance on one stream, naturally it's doomed for failure, just like we're seeing at this time with so many in dire states now. So as that opens up for each of you, naturally social media and the internet is a way to do that. So there's been a request for, and I've been thinking about it some time, of a workshop and a specific training on the ways in which we can share through social, the ways in which we can develop other streams of income through our gifts, developing ourselves out in this way. I mean, we see countless ads everywhere developing a 7-figure income online and all of this. I'm not your guy for that. I've lived off entrepreneurship for the past decade, but I'm not here to claim anything gigantic. All I'm here to point to is you can live off and have a livelihood, or at least a stream for yourself that can feel comfortable and feel integral, feels alignment with what you authentically would like to share outwardly in a way that is not, inauthentic and out of integrity with what you feel called to. This is something that I've been wanting to explore, and there's been numerous people that I feel are asking and need of this at this time. So we're looking to do this. If that's of interest, say so in the comments or just send me a message, and we will do that. And and yeah, we'll explore things as they naturally come up. This virtual retreat, it was just an initiation. Some of you, I mean, I'm working with on the regular. Other ones, this is fairly new to connect, so it's beautiful to do that. But it's just an initiation for this next little bit of time as we continue to, be isolated and require this virtual connection. So it's a beautiful thing to be doing. So blessings to all of you. We're gonna go over to Facebook. I'll probably start that in the next 15 minutes or so, and I'm not sure how long it will be, but we'll see. Okay. Deep love to each of you. Connect soon. Enjoy your night.